move internet to the whole republic and people enjoy high-speed internet. You will find that even things like hotspots that were put by government, most of them are not working because they were put, internet connected, the switches were put, the extenders were put in place, but there was no sustainability plan. And in my first few days in office, if you confirm me, is to make sure that we have an arrangement with ISPs who have services there and probably have cross-trade with what they pay in fees, and they man those public hotspots so that there is internet every corner of the republic. As the president says, every market should have internet, and that is my belief. I guess,
yes, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. I just have a few questions for you, Honorable Kabogo, from the members of the public. One person has asked, how will you balance the need for regulation within the digital economy to ensure innovation and competition while protecting consumer rights and preventing monopolistic practices by major tech players? That's one question. The second one is, what plans do you have for scaling up digital literacy skills development in Kenya, particularly in our schools, universities, and local communities, to prepare them for the demands of the digital economy and workspace? And last, how will you address the issue of radio and TV stations, particular vernacular stations, promoting betting and gambling, which has increasingly affected all segments of society, including older generation? What measures will you implement to regulate such content and protect vulnerable populations and curb this negative social impact through that caused by excessive gambling?
Good. Those are questions sent in by members of the public.
Thank you.
Let's take one more from Naisula.
This is a direct question. If approved for appointment, what 5 key deliverables can the youth of Kenya expect to see from your office in the short and medium term?
Mary Masse, you have a question from a member of the public?
Yes, from the member of the public. He's saying, digital services require public trust. How would the CS nominee maintain ethical standards in the use of technology, especially in projects that involve surveillance or data collection? And then the second one is, ICT projects have historically faced challenges related to corruption and mismanagement. What specific measures will the CS nominee implement to ensure transparency and accountability in ICT procurement processes?
Yes, the first one was on the balancing of digital economy regulations and monopoly. As I said earlier, Mheshimiwa Deputy Speaker, we have to balance and create regulations that look on both sides of the device, but bringing all stakeholders together and discussing these issues sometimes is the easier route so that people understand the parameters. Again, we may have laws, but they are not followed. I'm sure even in bullying, CA has come up with an app that helps you report these things, but not many people know about it. So engagement with public and stakeholders would help us come up with regulations on how to control that monopoly. Plans on how to scale digital skills. We have said we develop curriculums on TVETs in secondary schools and all these things, which we will work together with the Ministry of Education to make sure that this very vital tool is available to Kenyans through secondary TVET and even primary schools. And as it is the plan to connect all institutions of learning with high-speed internet, which is again available on the fiber optic cable. That will enhance learning. we can also involve the young that are educated, very many of them in the streets, as ICT ambassadors in constituencies who may be employed by the ministry to run these programs even online, so that it's not confined only to institutions. And that is my thinking. Betting, Mr. Speaker, it is a very serious problem. Where you find, without risking naming radio stations, you will find a young man holds a knife to the mother in the morning and asks for 100 shillings. And if you don't give, nitakuduka. And this is betting. I am sure there must be a way of controlling betting in Kenya. It is a big problem. One may not understand because it looks like 100 shillings in betting, which is neither here nor there. But if you listen to what these radio stations say, they have 1 million people early morning putting 100 shillings and hoping to earn 100,000 shillings. If my mathematics are right, Mr. Speaker, that is 100 million shillings in that first hour of the day on one radio station. And what is paid back in total is about 10 million shillings. So we have people making Kenyans poorer every day, and Kenyans have hope in making 10,000. But they don't understand that 100 million shillings has been collected. So this is a thing that cuts across security, ICT, and the freedom of radio broadcasting, etc., that the government needs to come together and stop. We have governments out there that have stopped gambling completely, at the risk of getting in trouble with these cartels because they are there. We need to do something, and urgently so, to control.
What will you do? You know,
I will call the ministry in charge of security, and this is a security concern. I should be able to move even in cabinet and say, do we think we need to deal with gambling? Because in my view, this is what is happening. It requires a concerted effort of government, Mr. Speaker, my belief. Single-handedly, I will not be able to handle. We have to do this together. Again, talk to members of the public. They have never understood this as a business that helps certain people and not them. They believe that they have a chance of putting in 100 and coming out with 10 million shillings or 10,000 shillings. Also, we could use an approach, Mr. Speaker, where people use token of 100 shillings to buy into government programs like Konza, so that every Kenyan who puts 100 shillings, in a month or so, it has 8% in terms of ownership of 8 shillings from 100, to 150 over 2 or 3 months, so that instead of getting 10,000 from gambling, you're getting 10% of your investment at the end of the month. And this is happening the world over in terms of tokenization. People invest in shares. So if we can encourage Kenyans to invest in shares of places like Konza City, you will find that they are putting the gambling money into useful savings in the future. But this is also a culture that, Mr. Speaker, has really grown in Kenya. The gambling culture is a menace, just to say the least. Honorable, I should ask for deliverables for the youth. We are saying we want to involve them to come to these cyber cafes, learn, and engage them to take loans of government. I will be proposing a loan fund for the young, the youth, and everyone, ICT loan fund for startups, where we will lend them LPOs to buy computers, to buy routers, and to have rent to pay. This will move the 1450 burden of building a class in a ward, as opposed to building. They will get the rentals, get skills from government, a planned curriculum skill for them, and then we will win them out to be on their own and make money on their own, because the digital platform right now, I'm told, is contributing about 10% of our GDP. It should be moving to 50%, because that's where the world is. Again, if we can deal with the exploitations that the Honorable Ichongwa talked about, where people find digital jobs can be done, HBOs in Kenya, very cheaply. If we regulate that and make them get a good share of their contents, you will see content creators right now are crying that music played on radios, etc., that money never gets to them. We should be able to quickly deal with that so that they get a good share of the YouTube runs that their content transparency.
Masters.
Mr. Speaker, in my mind, where I sit, corruption is a problem again, a problem talked about all over. But if the dealings of government are in the open, for example, there is a portal of the Ministry of ICT and the stuff that the ministry is doing, the engagement with public will put fear in people who plan to do certain things, Mr. Speaker, corrupt dealings. Information is power in the hands of the public, and creating discussions openly. But you will find, again, corruption, Mr. Speaker, doesn't happen on the payment. It happens from inception. So if these things are brought to the open, it will minimize corruption in the public affairs. So as a ministry, if I'm confirmed, I should be able to say, I will make sure in the next 6 months, if I'm confirmed, Mr. Speaker, that the Ministry of ICT and Digital Economy is completely digital, and hoping that other ministries, because we now have officers, I'm told, Ministry of ICT directors in every ministry, we should be able to get Kenya government services digital completely. There's a lot of talk out there of e-citizen not working. I've been a victim myself, Mr. Speaker, trying to pay discharge fees for land. And it's important for us sometimes to tell the public what is happening to these platforms. And what I understand, and which we should be able to deal with, Mr. Speaker, is that the front end, which is the application to pay, is automated, such that you can do that in 15 or 5 minutes, so to speak. But when the application for discharge goes to lands, there are files that they have to go through manually to be able to generate an invoice for you. So we've done half the automation. So we should be able to tell Kenyans how progressively we are doing in terms of automating end to end. And I'm sure that can be sectionalized in every ministry that is giving government services. But getting 20,000 services today is not a simple thing. So I'm thinking if we all buy into the idea of making Kenya a digital country in terms of government services, it will be easy for everyone, even for members of parliament, where they want to know exactly what is happening in every ministry. And those portals are available for read only. You should be able to know from the ministry, even as opposed to you asking a question from a minister, you should be able to know exactly what is happening in the Ministry of Sports in terms of their development programs. So, Mr. Speaker, it's a journey that is worth taking, and we are equal to the task as government service providers.
Thank
Mr. Speaker.
you,
Mr.
Nominee.
Speaker,
Yes.
probably just correct, Standard Media have put out that he said 1912 is when he started using computers. I just want him to clarify on record so that Standard Media doesn't play around with it.
He was born 1912.
Yeah, I know. I know. He's only 60. He was born in 1961, but Standard Media have said he started using computers in 1912. That's what they have reported. So we need to, he just needs to just say it.
Mr. Speaker, I had said earlier that I had issues with the Standard and I took them to court and made a little bit of money. So surely, I was not around 1912. But if they don't withdraw, I shall do what is necessary, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Or simply tell the country when you started using computers.
Yes, I had said here, and it's on record, Mr. Speaker, that it was 1992.
Yes.
And I remember it very well
That's
because
what
that
you
time
said.
Somalia had just gotten into problems.
Where did the Standard pick 1912?
So probably he had 12 instead of 92.
We just encourage let's not escalate it. We encourage you, gentlemen of the media,
That was
be
what-
as accurate as you can in reporting what is going on here. Because Honorable Kabogo didn't say 1912, and if he did, I would have stopped him. Because that would have been a crude misinformation. Honorable Kabogo, there's one more Kenyan called Muhuyo, who says, ask the nominee how he will ensure free, fair, and precise election by ensuring counting and release of result is fast and accurate, like in the US, where results for over 200 million voters is released in less than 48 hours, whereas here, we just have a less than 1/8 of the same. He's also, of course, not factually correct, because we know the case of Florida in the US.
Yes.
But you can answer.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. That is a very genuine and good question.
Yes.
But the ministry that probably, if you confirm me, will have very little on the issue of elections because there is a body. But as a Kenyan, Mr. Speaker, I would want a situation where I walk into a ballot room where elections are being held. I am identified digitally, I vote digitally, and my vote is counted that minute. That is a dream that every other politician who has suffered things like I have suffered on issues of elections, it will be a thing of the past, but it's a dream for many countries.
Before I come to the final issues, Honorable Kabogo, as a Kenyan, and if you are confirmed, you've been repeatedly asked here about cyberbullying, pornography, and dirty material on the net that's accessed by our children. We were in Australia in October, and the Prime Minister of Australia was moving a bill, the Prime Minister himself, to curtail access to social media by under 16s because of these kind of reasons. I'm not saying you need that kind of drastic action, but from where you sit, what ideas do you have in protecting children under 16s from access to filth material that is all over?
Mr. Speaker,
I meet many parents who cry and say, look, I walked into my son's room and I didn't believe what I saw. How old was your son? 7. I walked into my daughter's room, I didn't believe what I saw. How old is your daughter? 10.
Mr. Speaker,
And remember, the state has a duty to protect and guarantee and guard the morals of our children.
Mr. Speaker, as a parent, from where I sit, I don't think what you saw in Australia, if we did that here, would be a drastic move. it may be the first step towards curtailing such dirty players on the internet. The other thing is create very strict regulations for people like Facebook or TikTok, because they are on platforms, so that Kenya has a negotiation and an agreement with those platforms that they cannot do this, because even doing the law, as Australia is planning to do, enforcement, Mr. Speaker, is one challenge. But I would prefer to recommend to Cabinet that such a law be put in place ASAP, because what is out there is really shocking. And we cannot deal with the morals and teach children morals if this is what they see on the internet. It gets to a point as a parent, you wish that there was no internet. You wish there was no social media, because of the exposure of these things in the minds of children. So it's a bad problem. It's worse than gambling. It is really bad. And as Minister, if I'm confirmed, Mr. Speaker, I know there's a lot of money that these companies spend to stay afloat. But as a country, if we take a stand that this cannot happen in Kenya, and a drastic move is taken to ban one of them, then the rest will toe the line. If you see the debate on TikTok and between America and China, you will see that money is really moving, but something positive is about to happen. So as a Kenyan, a parent, and probably as a minister, is something that is really concerning about what is available there. You cannot even face your children in your own living room because of the material that has come to their heads. And you will see a family that has a boy and a girl of probably that age of 7 and 8. Your guess is as good as mine, Mr. Speaker, what you would see them do. And it is killing for a parent to be able to deal with such a thing.
Thank you, Nominee. I will now ask you a few other questions. You told us how hardworking you are and how much money you have made. What is your net worth in terms of assets, houses,
Mr.
land,
Speaker,
cash, and bank?
Residential houses, Mr. Speaker, my total net worth is about 700 million. Movable assets of about 40 million, Mr. Speaker. Land and farm, about 756 million, Mr. Speaker. Cash and current assets of about 64 million, Mr. Speaker. Beg your pardon. And interest and shares in companies, approximately 1.5 billion. So a total of about 3.1 billion, Mr. Speaker. Yes. Conservatively, Mr. Speaker.
Conservatively,
Yes.
you are worth over 3 billion. That's what you said, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Have you ever been convicted? Yes, Junet.
Mr. Speaker, when I listened to the presentation on the issue of net worth, the nominee said he has a movable asset. I suspect that should be vehicles and such things.
Yes,
For
Mr.
40
Speaker.
million shillings.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Only.
Conservatively, yes, sir.
Yeah, I saw another vehicle that looks very ugly. I thought that alone is 40 million. The one that looks like something else on the road. You remember?
Mr. Speaker, vehicles get devalued almost up to zero, accounting-wise. And you know the prudent rule in accounting, you anticipate both losses and profits. So, yes, it could be about 40 million.
Yes, Murugara.
It is said he also owns a chopper, and I don't see it anywhere here. A chopper. He actually, it's a movable. No.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
it is true. I had one at some point when I was a young man.
What happened to it?
And I could fly it myself. I'm a pilot myself, Mr. Speaker. So when I couldn't fly as much, I decided to let it go.
You sold it?
Yes, I sold it.
So it's part of the
It's part of-
3.06
yes,
billion.
it's part.
Have you ever been convicted of an offense in a court of law?
No, sir, I have never been convicted.
Have you ever been adversely mentioned in any parliamentary committee report, apart from the cited documents?
No, I have never been mentioned, Mr. Speaker.
Do you hold an office in a political party?
No, I don't, Mr. Speaker.
Tujibebe.
I resigned from Tujibebe when I was nominated by the president.
You nominated a caretaker.
Not as yet. The party is going through the process.
Have you ever been dismissed or removed from an office
No,
on
sir.
account of contravention of Article 75 of the Constitution?
No, sir, I have never been.
Okay. Have you ever been adversely associated with practices that depict bias, favoritism, tribalism, nepotism in the discharge of your duties?
No, sir, but a couple of years ago, I was taken to court on hate speech, but I was acquitted of the charges. That's like nine years ago that I had said something in a Thika stadium that was not pleasant for political opponents, but I was taken to court and I was acquitted.
Was it tribalistic or nepotistic?
No, it was not tribalistic. It was just political statements.
Right. Thank you. We now come to an end with you. Make sure you collect your documents that have been cross-checked with what we have and found to be in order. There was a bit of memoranda on you. We've seen your responses and they are reasonably satisfactory. So unless you are lawfully held,
Thank you so much.
you are discharged to
Thank
go
you so
back
much,
to your
Mr. Speaker.
businesses.
And, members of the National Assembly. Asanteni sana.
Thank you, Honorable Kabogo. Members, we'll have a 10-minute break to allow the clerk and his team to prepare for the next nominee. Yeah. So we resume at 5:50, 10 to 6.